All throughout antiquity, we've seen that architecture is a very important part of every culture. Paul Johnson once said that architecture is the most revealing of all the arts. It is possible to tell more about a culture's faith by its buildings than by its philosophers. Even in today's society, buildings like the Taj Mahal, the Colosseum, or the Great Pyramid of Giza are all unique representations of their nation's culture. But have you ever wondered why a building looks a certain way, or why it functions the way it does, or why it has certain features? Well, all buildings, regardless of size, design, or function, are an expression of a worldview. Think about it. All buildings start with a design. The designer, also known as the architect, implements his or her worldview into that design, whether they realize it or not. In Lecture 15 of Antiquity, Dr. Grant said that ultimately every building's worldview falls into one of 6 different categories. Those categories are form follows function, function follows form and function follow engineering, engineering follows function and form, cost effectiveness trumps all, or grandeur trumps all. The J.S. Dorton Arena, constructed in 1951 at the North Carolina State Fairgrounds, was built for agricultural trade, industrial commerce, and for the general welfare of North Carolina. The elliptical building measures 300 feet in diameter and features a 25,000 square foot floor, exterior walls made of glare-reducing glass, and the world's first cable-supported roof system. The arena is truly a remarkable feat of engineering and is referred to by Governor William Olmsted as a great tribute to the vision and foresight of not only the builders, but of all the people of North Carolina. Ultimately, the Dorton Arena was built to host events that would benefit the people of North Carolina. Therefore, the building's functionality was determined before the design. However, the engineering technology was far superior to any other standard arena at the time. That is why I think the Dorton Arena falls into the engineering follows function and form category. The West Building at the North Carolina Art Museum was designed to operate in an environmentally friendly manner. Controlled stormwater runoff, enhanced energy efficiency, climate-controlled systems, and responsible landscaping practices were all key features in the design of the new building. From the very beginning, Larry Wheeler, the Art Museum's director, wanted a building that embraced green principles and challenged Thomas Pfeiffer, the chief architect, to marry art and nature together. Despite the rather bland appearance on the outside, the 127,000 square foot museum is extremely eco-friendly, while still offering a welcoming, modern atmosphere on the inside. As stated before, energy efficiency and eco-friendliness were defining aspects of the building's design. Therefore, I think the building would fall into the function and form follow engineering category. The North Carolina Capitol building, finished in 1840, was originally designed to simply be a bigger version of the old Capitol building. North Carolina hired William Nichols to design the plans for the new building. However, Nichols was quickly replaced by Ithiel Town and Alexander Davis from New York. Town and Davis made some major adjustments to Nichols' original plan, which greatly improved the building's design. But in 1834, Raleigh's new commissioner, David Patton, replaced the 2 architects from New York. Patton then made some minor changes to the design that mainly affected the building's interior. His designs were primarily based on the features from ancient Greek buildings, like Doric-style columns, Corinthian-style ornaments, and Ionic-style decorations. All of these fancy features cost the state over $500,000, which was at the time more than triple the annual income of North Carolina. Because of its hefty price, I think the Capitol building falls into the grandeur trumps all category. The current executive mansion is the 4th home for North Carolina's governor and is currently occupied by Governor Pat McCrory. The Victorian-style building, completed in 1891, was a very cost-effective project. Most of the supplies were gathered from North Carolinian sources, thus eliminating the cost of importing goods from other countries. Prison laborers were also used to construct the mansion rather than experienced yet pricey construction workers. So, as elaborate and as gorgeous as the mansion may seem, this piece of architecture falls into the cost-effectiveness worldview. However, it is possible that the building could be placed in the form follows function category because the ultimate reason for the construction of the mansion was to provide a home and office for North Carolina's governor. Town Hall in Wake Forest was built to unite all of the town's government offices under one roof, while giving visitors a uniquely Wake Forest experience. The 44,000 square foot facility sought to embrace the spirit and identity of Wake Forest, as well as reinforce the mutual respect between the town government and its people. The architect of Town Hall was challenged to create a sustainable building that resembled Wake Forest's commitment to creating green, energy-efficient buildings. The end result was a magnificent building that provides a clean, healthy environment for both workers and visitors. So even though the building is fitted with the latest and greatest of eco-friendly technology, I don't believe it just fits into the form and function follow engineering category. I think the building could easily fit into the function follows form category because the building was designed to instill a sense of community pride within the people. There is a reason the building looks the way it does, and that reason may have been the most important aspect in the architect's design. Those were just a few examples of the worldviews that can be expressed through architecture. As you saw from the last two buildings, it's not always possible to simplify a building's worldview into just one category. Sometimes designing a building isn't as easy as focusing specifically on a design or a purpose. Instead, there are a lot of other things that one must consider when designing a building.
Design school is more about appearance, but the reality is more about building codes and making sure that your clients are happy. You know, when you're in design school, there are no building codes, there's no budget, there's no clients.
The building code influences everything we do, and it's the framework that everything has to fit in.
It's a minimum guideline. That's what we have to meet, you know, and it's all about life safety as well, the codes. That's the minimum requirement that we have to meet for it to be passed by, you know, whatever jurisdiction you're in.
Our clients, of course, the first thing in their mind is their budget. So we don't want to do something that's, you know, too far or you know, extravagant when they don't have an extravagant budget. I was just talking to a fellow about an auditorium for a charter school. I mean, I could go design them a really nice amphitheater style auditorium with fold down seats and a full-blown commercial kitchen, but their budget's not going to allow that.
Generally, everybody comes to you with some sort of a budget, and so that will often determine what kind of a building you're going to build. It often ends up determining how big that building is really going to be.
But we have to find the best way that meets building codes, that meets the client's need, that fits their budget, that ultimately the users of the building are not inconvenienced, they're not uncomfortable, they're, you know, you have to make sure all those parts and pieces fit together just the right way.
One of my early mentors, an architect that I worked for, said there are 3 elements to design. There's quantity, the size of the building. There's quality, the materials that you're using in the building, and then there's the cost. You can define 2 of those, but you can't define all 3. Because if you define 2 of them, it gives you the 3rd one. So for instance, if you know how big the building is that you need or want, and you know what kind of materials you want it to be made of, that's going to determine how much it costs.
Hopefully you've seen that there's a reason for every aspect of a building. Objects aren't just put in place to be put in place. There's a worldview behind the grand design of the structure, and that worldview ultimately determines how the building is built, shaped, and used.